Hello, welcome back to the Devil on the G String. Oh, Yuki. You did not have to do this. Tokita let go of the hostage and stood still for a moment, dazed. The nail she had threatened to use as a weapon fell to the ground. Shiratori squeaked at Tokita's surrender. Judging by the fact that she wasn't bound in the least, Shiratori must have accidentally been cooperating with Tokita. Actually, been cooperating with the director seemed to be alive, at least. I just guess the word sometimes.
Yuki, Kisama, tada de sumu to omou na yo.
He seemed lively enough.
Azai-san, onegai desu.
The rest was up to me, I guess. Usami wanted me to save Tokita.
Yuki が魔王の関係者だということをここにいる人たちに知られたら。
Yeah. She would be left with Horibe at the mercy of his horrible tortures.
すみません。
Heck, why me? Well, I'll live this down eventually. Everyone, listen up. I faced the group of villainous men. Thank you all very much for helping us out here all through the night. I, as Kyousuke, will never forget this favor. I will be personally rewarding each of you later. For now, though, I think we should call it a day. I'll report this to my father immediately. Feel free to go home in the meantime. I can't afford to let any of them talk to Gonzou directly. Some of them might have overheard our conversation and learned something about Tokita and Maou. The men, swearing here and there, slowly turned to leave. They seemed content enough after I mentioned a reward. Suddenly, the people nearest the entrance stopped in their tracks. Boisterous greetings echoed through the warehouse. A giant strode through the ranks of beasts before pouncing in front of me. Oh god. I had seen cars coming when we rushed in. That was Gonzou?
うちの狼どもはいつからお前の家畜になったんだ。
Father, I'm very sorry. A dull thud echoed through my skull.
立てこもりの話は聞いた。時田の義理の娘が親に復讐していたようだな。
He pointed at Tokita with his chin. The director suddenly raised his head.
浅井組長。よくおいでくださいました。おかげさまで大変助かりました。
The director tried to kiss a little, but...
息子さんには感謝しております。どうか今後ともよしなに。
Gonzou finally spoke without a hint of expression.
下道には下道の報いがある。
It's just scary. He has a presence.
貴様が原因でうちの若い衆がこき使われたようだな。私ではありません。そこの女が。手当として一人につき500払え。
There were 20 men here at least. That's over 100 million yen total.
そんな大金は。黙れ。
The director paled. Father, the situation has been resolved. I have no excuses for my overworking of your men.
何を隠している。
Pardon, sir?
知れ犬が宇佐美もいるではないか。
Did you smell her, I wonder? In any case, Gonzou was quick to suspect the connection between the situation here and now.
Yeah.
Excuse me. You lifted me up by the shirt.
俺は貴様に魔王を探れと命じた。が、貴様は全く関係のない事件に俺の紙幣を投じたというのか。
It's only natural for Gonzou to be angry.
魔王は捕まえ次第八つ咲きにする。 魔王の子飼いも生きたまま皮を剥いでやろう。これを3つ数える。その間に真実を述べねば貴様の連れも皆殺しだ。
Companions? Usami, Shiratori, and Tokita?
一つ。
Are they really my companions? Would that make them my friends?
二つ。
What am I doing? I should be obeying Gonzou. Suddenly, despite my suffocated, hazy consciousness, a vision flashed before my eyes. I saw Suzuki protecting their brother. I watched Kanon leave without saying so much as a word. And as my sight returned, I saw Tokita, who refused to lay a hand on Shiratori. I watched her distant legs swing wide open.
やめて。京介君を離して。
She faced Gonzou and me with an utterly blank expression.
貴様か。
Gonzou let go of me and walked toward Tokita.
その通り。私は魔王を知っているわ。
お前が時田の娘だな。
ええ。父さんとお知り合いなの。
Gonzou responded to Tokita's question by throwing her a death glare.
魔王はどこだ。
わからないわ。
知っていることを洗いざらい話せ。
ほとんど知らないわ。本当よ。
本当かどうかは俺が決める。
Pure malice seemed to swell in Gonzou's eyes. It's all over. Gonzou isn't going to let Tokita off lightly. We didn't know each other for long, but Tokita wasn't half bad, if you ask me. I sort of got along with her. To be honest, I wish she could have stuck around a little longer. I mean, considering the lengths she went to in order to exact her revenge, Tokita must have held at least a small grudge against Shiratori. Why did she refuse to hurt her? If she had used Shiratori as a legitimate hostage, the situation would have gone overwhelmingly in Tokita's favor. So, why? Why is this sensation so alien to me when everyone around me seems to have something warm in them?
さらえ。
Gonzou commanded his pack to pray. Just as I was about to flinch away from the spectacle, as I did every time I bore witness to Gonzou's cruelty, I heard pitiful sobs echo through the warehouse.
やめてください。
Of all the begging I've heard before Gonzou, this was the most meaningless, powerless plea. What a foolish girl.
姉さんは悪くないんです。
Yuki's heart, already unable to fulfill its revenge, allowed the world to slip away entirely as it fell into despair at this new development.
何も悪くないんです。
Mizuha was an idiot. It was no use. Yuki's experience told her this after a mere glance at his eye Gonzou. No matter how much she screams or cries, this giant's heart would remain steadfast.
許して。姉さんにひどいことしないで。
She must not fully comprehend the situation. Mizuha doesn't even know about the connection between Yuki and Maou. She's merely throwing a tantrum. Good lord, why does she feel the need to make all this right?
私がいけないです。
After finally being pierced by Gonzou's gaze, Mizuha's lips stiffened in fear.
私が姉さんに話を持ちかけて人質のふりをしていたんです。
How foolish. Who would believe such a story? And regardless, Azai Gonzou was uninterested in the hostage situation. Her claim was utterly unimportant.
魔王、私が知ってます。 姉さんは関係ないんです。
ほう。
Trembling in fear before Gonzou's deep voice, Mizuha awkwardly spun her words together.
だから姉さんを許してください。
Tears fell onto her scarf. The situation was almost aggravating. All she had to do was keep quiet. At this rate, Mizuha would be put to the Yakuza torture as well. Why is she always so much trouble? Yuki stared at Mizuha's scarf as she spoke to Gonzou.
まさかその子の話を信じるわけじゃないでしょ。
Gonzou glanced at Yuki. His eyes were chilling enough to freeze Yuki's reason as she tried to read him. Had Mizuha really just lied straight into these eyes?
本当です。
Mizuha cried out again.
話にならないわ、水葉。黙りなさい。やだよ。殺されるわよ。
Why? Mizuha's behavior bewildered Yuki. She wished Mizuha could understand her feelings. The last thing Yuki wanted was to drag her poor sister down with her. Yet more tears flew across Mizuha's pale cheeks, eventually coming to rest on her scarf.
おい。
As Gonzou finally opened his mouth, the anger in his lips implied that he would not waste time with this farce.
あれはなんだ。
He asked as he pointed at Mizuha.
さあ。
All Yuki could do was smile, though her lips twitched with terror.
お前の妹か。だったらわかるな。
The pack of beasts understood their leader well enough and drew near to Mizuha. She had to deny it, but what good would denying it do? It was too late now. Mizuha's eyes flooded with tears. Her scream tore through the claustrophobic air of the warehouse, slicing apart the tension in the room.
姉さんは今までずっと大変だったの。もう許してあげて。大変だったんだから。
Mizuha's vocabulary suffered for her desperation. Her plea wasn't convincing in the least. However, despite being too weak to save Yuki, those words did manage to shake her heart. The scarf she had given Mizuha so long ago was now drowning in her endless tears.
妹よ。
Her voice was faint,
よく
damp.
見てよ。
水葉はいつでも姉さんの味方だよって。
Oh, she's crying.
そっくりじゃない。
Yuki pointed at her sister, who looked almost nothing like her, and she realized what she had just done. What was she saying? What a stupid pair of sisters. She had to deny it. Now, think. How can you persuade that stupid sister of yours? Think! Don't involve your sister in this. Hell doesn't need both of us. Speak, darn it! What are those words you were supposedly so good with? Where are those words? Where not what? Make use of what you sold your soul to the devil to earn. Her voice wouldn't come out. No matter how much she tried, it wouldn't come out. What I did then must have come as a huge surprise to his icon, so... It even surprised me. Nobody move! I grabbed Gonzou's huge shoulders from behind. My other hand held Tokido's nail.
気でも触れたか、京介。
Yeah, I guess I have. Usami, take Tokido and Shiratori and run! What am I doing? Well, everyone, get out of their way! Do you guys want Gonzou to die? Why am I doing this?
ほう。
His lips curved into a smirk. It bore all the confidence of a wild animal before devouring its prey. My body had nearly moved before my mind could comprehend fear.
犯罪さん
Just get out of here! Usami seemed to grasp the situation. Dilly-dallying around here would be truly idiotic. She quickly pulled Tokido by the arm.
面白い。 俺は完全に油断していたぞ、京介。何があった？
I don't know. I couldn't answer. My classmates' faces just came to mind. Tsubaki, Kanon, Shiratori, Tokita. The tears rolling down their cheeks had spurred me on somehow.
Azai-san, すみません!
Usami quickly helped Shiratori up from the ground and hurried for the door. Tokita and Shiratori followed Usami in a daze, as if they had lost all will of their own. I said get out of their way! I'll kill him! Usami and the rest made their way to the exit. Like a boulder tearing apart rapids, the crowd of people split as they pushed her. Gonzou didn't move an inch. Shortly thereafter, I heard the roaring sound of a car engine outside. They must have taken the car and prepared for Tokita. The tires grazed along, and they left.
Oi.
I was then literally attacked by bottomless despair. Good.
俺はお前に驚いている。俺を上回る恐怖に出会わねば裏切らぬと思っていた。
That's what I thought too.
お前は俺にへつらうだけの家畜ではなかったのか。
My hand shook uncontrollably.
俺に拾われ母を捨て金の奴隷になったのではなかったのか。
It was too late to make excuses. I didn't even understand what I did. Explaining my actions would be out of the question.
で、どうするのだ、京介。
What will I do? He's asking about the future. What future does someone who bore their fangs at Gonzou have?
お前は金を貯めて母を迎えるつもりだった。
I timidly nodded.
そんなお前にとって残念な知らせが先ほど届いた。
What?
死んだぞ。
I dropped the nail and it bounced off the ground with a clang.
母親だ。
My vision was instantly dyed black.
跳ねられたらしい。
My knees threatened to collapse beneath me.
飲酒運転の車に。
Though entirely numb, I somehow felt my body melt into the solid floor. Oh. There were no traces of a lie in Gonzou's eyes. No. I burst into an eardrum-shattering scream. I looked to the ceiling for a moment before my eyes rolled back, my lungs all the while fighting to force out this blood-curdling despair. Oh no, that's the end of chapter 4. Oh. Okay, next chapter. Oh, that's... Oh, that was... My dearest son, I want to speak with you in person. His father wrote before the first trial. I'm not going to be able to avoid the death penalty. Thus, I don't rightly care if you take this letter as the rambling excuses of a murder. I just want to detail the honest truth about the events leading up to my killing of Usami-san. I was born and raised in a fishing village in Hokkaido, the third son in my family. I moved to Tokyo to pursue higher education, and after graduating from college I somehow managed to snag a position in the world-famous Sano Corporation. My days in their accounting division were hectic. An extraordinary volume of goods passed through the hands of a huge company like Sano each day. They were purchased overseas, imported, manufactured, transported, distributed, and the debits and credits associated with each step required a monstrous effort and nerve-wracking perseverance to keep straight. One day, as I was intensively double-checking our service and purchase costs in preparation for the end of the current billing period, I collapsed from exhaustion. I suppose things finally caught up to me. Nevertheless, it was a happy occasion, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. For that was the day I met your mother, who was working as a nurse at a nearby hospital. I soon found myself making up excuses to my boss just so that I could sneak out to visit her there. You boys have always known your mother as a cheerful woman whose cooking could satisfy royalty, but at work she was a bit shy and had a hard time holding conversations. She wasn't very good with people, and trying to socialize with her colleagues wore on her nerves. She later told me that her nursing work aggravated her anxiety so much that she began to take tranquilizers. But as you know, your old man was straightforward, persuasive, and a frivolous joker. I guess I shouldn't be surprised when my son Kyousuke gets described in the same way, huh? I asked her to marry me barely 1 month after meeting her. I rushed things along because I knew how things worked in trading companies. One never stays in one place for too long. Anyway, I took her to an amusement park and then gave her the ring at a hotel restaurant that evening. Luckily for me, your mother was also interested in me. Her beautiful white skin turned bright red, and I remember she nearly fell out of her chair in surprise. I went to visit her parents the very next day, and before we knew it, we were married. Supposedly, the people at the ceremony called me a waist stealer. Soon after, as I'd predicted, I was transferred to Germany. Your mother came along without a single complaint. We had our first child there in Europe, far away from our homeland. That child was you, of course. Apparently it was a difficult delivery. You came out legs first. Your old man wept at the sound of your first cry. It was completely out of character. We lived in Germany until you were 3 years old. You were a playful little boy. Your first words were amusement park. Germany had nothing but those mobile carnivals, so when we returned to Japan, I made sure to take you to a full-fledged theme park. I want to play every day, forever. I was quite worried for your future when you said those words. But much to my relief, you turned out to be a genius. They called me to your elementary school once after you taken an IQ test, and all your mother could say later was that a duck like me had raised up a swan. For a long time, as you know, our family enjoyed peaceful days. My mousy wife, who suddenly became a lioness, went home with her boys, my 2 sons, frivolous Kyousuke and cold, passionate Kyohei. The 4 of us lived happily. Hey, did you ever notice this tidbit? Though it seemed like I was gone overseas on business most of the time, I was always home for Bon, New Year's, and your birthday. Now that I think about it, those were the happiest days of my life. So when was it that I met Usami Yoshinori? Usami-san was a capable man working as a sales manager at a construction firm under the Sano Corporation umbrella. You've heard of the Tomenbetsu City underground discharge channel, right? It's being constructed under the city as a drainage route for rainwater. If it ever gets completed, they say it'll be 50 meters deep and one of the largest underground open spaces in the world. The first time I met Usami-san, he boasted about how he had plucked the privilege of building the outer underground discharge channel from the whole country. He held his head high like a samurai and talked in a dignified manner. I met the man when I was transferred to that huge nationally recognized project. I say, the first time I met him, but I suppose that's a lie. I first encountered him back in my school days through an activist group when we both attended. Activism was all the rage in those days. It may sound hard to believe now, but I was bad news back then. I took over an authoritative position in an activist group from a neighboring town. This position allowed me to manage their funds. It was some fairly risky business. And to this very day, I still have the police coming to my door from time to time. Usami-san and I had a riot discussing old times. For example, there was a time we barricaded ourselves in one of the school buildings. But as we look back on everything, both Usami-san and I realized that we hadn't done what we did out of any productive ideals or anything. There was merely something wrong with us. At least, that's the conclusion we both reached as we sat around drinking together. After about 2 weeks, we had gotten close enough that Usami-san invited me over to his house. Much to my surprise, it wasn't a house at all. It was a small apartment that seemed to be at least 20 years old. I suppose I expected him to live more luxuriously, seeing as he had such a distinguished career. I do have quite a bit of savings, but I don't come home very often. He laughed as he said that. I found that rather strange. I had heard he had a wife and a daughter. However, I understood when he told me his wife's name. I was astonished, and I must admit, even a bit jealous. His wife was Mishima Haru, a famous violinist. He said he had waited to tell me so that it would come as a bigger surprise. He'd always had the nature of an entertainer and enjoyed his dramatics more than most. I'm sure I've told you before, but I'm a huge fan of Mishima-san. Her world tours brought her performances to audiences across the globe, from Moscow to New York. She must have been incredibly busy. It's only natural she wouldn't have the time to go home. It made me feel incredibly sorry for their daughter, Haru. Her father was as wildly successful as her mother, and between all the transfers and travel, the poor girl must have been left behind more often than not. I doubt she received the love and attention she needed to develop as a child should. The general consensus about little Haru-chan was that she was a strange kid, and sure enough, when I knocked on the door to her room that fateful first visit, she didn't respond at all. No greeting, no acknowledgement. Only the sound of a violin betrayed her presence with him. "This song is for you," she eventually said, and began playing the air on the G string. Apparently, she was rather like you. She was born in Germany and had learned to play the violin from the age of 5. She had her mother's talent, and the girl's rendition was truly beautiful. At that point, you could say Usami-san and I were friends. Nevertheless, Haru-chan kept to herself all the time. It made me want to bring her home to meet you and your brother. God knows the girl had probably never been to a proper family gathering. However, I was never given the chance. The more I was with Usami-san, the more he invited me to play mahjong. One day, as he was kicking my butt at the game, Usami-san surely told me about his family situation, that he was the 4th son in a family of bureaucrats, and that despite having the brains and connections to be a politician, he continued to work at his current company. It was only when he began to insult his father, who was a famous member of the cabinet, and his brothers that I realized something was not quite right. And I assure you, it wasn't a side effect of many losses at mahjong. I later found out that his family had disowned him, but he certainly wasn't a worthless man. He was a good leader to his subordinates on their underground channel project, and he took initiative when negotiating with subcontractors. He practically became a corporate legend after heading alone into the director of senior management's office, a man named Somaya, with a bottle of whiskey to propose an increase in the project's budget. Usami was a man of both humor and wit, and to be quite honest, it's not surprising that he was able to win over Mishima Kaoru. "Samejima-san, I've got a favor to ask," he said in his usual dramatic tone one night after we finished a dinner meeting at a high-class restaurant in downtown Tokyo. "I believe you'll find it to be quite a tempting offer." He said he wanted to start his own business in the near future, not one under the Sinnoh Corporation umbrella, but his very own company. "You're the first person I've mentioned this to," he said, as passionately as a child. He had a tendency to boast about his plans, but his talent was recognized both within the company and around Japan's business world. I was sure he'd be a success, and I told him I was rooting for him. "I want you to be my partner." I'd half suspected the conversation was headed in that direction, but he openly invited me to join his new company. He respectfully bowed to me and offered to make me a manager if I invested some money in the company. I felt bad about it, but I rejected his offer. I didn't have any ambition. I was happy with my current job, and most of all, if I had time to start a business, I'd rather spend it with you and the rest of our family. "I'm sad to hear that," Usami-san said. "I'm sorry, I've got a baby girl on the way, you see." "Really now? Congratulations. You've always said you wanted a girl. Have you decided on a name yet?" The child I named Kiyomi was born with a genetic heart disease, as you two already know. It was the first baby girl in our home, which had until then been blessed only with boys. My excitement was probably enough to make you two jealous. And she was a handful, wasn't she? We had to take her to the hospital twice a week, and your mother nearly collapsed from anemia. And when your mother was feeling too ill to change her noisy little sister's diapers, you diligently volunteered to do it yourself. You were such a kind-hearted boy. Nevertheless, Kiyomi died. She was only 15 months old. She passed on a peaceful day, one heavy with the traces of the coming spring. Your mother said she looked like she was sleeping. Do you remember the quiet funeral, son? It was only the 4 of us, yet you didn't shed a single tear. For what reason was she born? You shouted up at the clear winter sky. You were just a boy, but life had already driven you to curse God. A week or so after Kiyomi died, Usami-san came to me with 3 of his subordinates. They were clad in mourning clothes and suddenly bowed to me. "I'm very sorry for your loss," he said, choking back tears. Usami-san raised his head and didn't try to hide the overflowing tears pouring from his red eyes. He's crying for Kiyomi, I thought, naively moved. After all, he had given clothes to my baby girl when she was born. I completely dropped my guard around Usami-san. He made time to take me to an expensive restaurant in Gonzou once. The wife stole off to Berlin and took Haru with her. I'm feeling pretty lonely myself, he said, and I completely believed that the man smiling bashfully before me was a true friend. "How much do you need?" "What do you mean? You talked to me about investing before, remember? You need funds to start your own business. If you want my help, it's yours." "Oh, don't be silly. I can't do that, Samejima-san. You've got a family to take care of. You can't have the time to be answering to my whims." "You're right. I'm sorry, but I can't leave my current job to go with you. Still, I'd like to lend you something as a token of my gratitude. I had put aside 5 million yen for Kiyomi's medical bills, so at the time, I figured it wouldn't do any harm to invest that in a friend who cared about Kiyomi enough to shed tears. I had already saved enough money to put 2 boys through schooling, and with my high-paying job at a top-class company, I had also probably forgotten the value of 5 million yen. Thank you very much. I'll repay this debt many times over." Thinking back on it now, I realized that Kiyomi's death had clouded my judgment. I made a few small blunders at work and occasionally took out my frustration on your mother. So, after offering a stick of incense to Kiyomi's portrait, I signed Usami-san's investment contracts. My signature was only needed on one of the two papers. We had the contracts notarized the next day. It's only now that I question why I needed to sign something in order to invest in his company. I've lamented this oversight so many times since that day. Why did I not read the other of the two papers? How could an accountant at Sono Corporation fall for such a simple ploy? I will be asked these questions at my trial, I'm sure of it. They will grind this point into the dust, doubting my sensibility, my common sense, and even my sanity. Forgive your foolish old dad. After that day, Usami-san also almost never met with me for a meal. I brushed it off, thinking he was just busy between building the outer underground discharge channel and setting up his own business. But then one weekend, when we were preparing to go on a family camping trip, a huge man in a jet black suit and blood-red shirt showed up on our doorstep. I met a few radicals during my stint in student activism. They all had uncanny facial expressions and their eyes glistening with their deviant ideals. Not one of those twisted men had half the overwhelming atmosphere of this bestial man. 50 million in all. He spoke in a tone that said he wouldn't take no for an answer, and I trembled in fear. It wasn't hard to recognize the giant as a Yakuza debt collector. He held a promissory note up to my face. I couldn't believe it. I had apparently at some point become the guarantor of someone named Kato Takayuki. Kato Takayuki, I knew the name. He was one of Usami-san's subordinates, and I played mahjong with him a few times. I had no idea what was what, and I asked him to leave. He obeyed me that day. However, his frozen eyes told me that next time he wouldn't be so lenient. I can still see the worry in your mother's eyes that afternoon. I was taken aback when I looked at the promissory note. The loan had a principal of 5 million yen, but an unbelievable amount of interest had accrued. As the man had said, 50 million in all. Promissory note in hand, I drove over to Usami-san's apartment. Mishima-san and Haru-chan weren't there. In their places were 3 men, including Kato Takayuki and Usami-san playing mahjong without a care in the world. I never intended to trick you, Samejima-san. I said I'd invest 5 million in you. I didn't say I'd shoulder your 50 million yen in debts. But you did sign the promissory note, did you not? Usami-san's acting was stellar. He tilted his head as if to say I was acting strange. If at this point I'd realized the trick Usami-san used on the promissory note, I wouldn't have had to resort to murder. I'm still not quite sure as to what happened, but Usami-san had somehow hidden something within those 2 contracts that exploded into my 50 million yen debt to the devil. Anyway, 50 million. You can pay it for my subordinate Kato, yes? It's not like it's an unpayable sum for someone in a top-rate firm like yourself, his arrogant chin seemed to say. Isn't this a crime, Usami-san? Don't be so silly. Where's the proof of that? This is fraud. I'll report you to the police. That's fine with me. If you do that, I'll just go ahead and report all of your recent screw-ups to Someiya back at headquarters. At this point, there wasn't a single employee at the company who was not aware of the close friendship between Usami-san and Director Someiya. I myself had heard rumors about employees being fired the day after doing no more than glaring at Usami-san, and as foolish as I was, I believed them. But if I were indeed a criminal, Samejima-san, but I'd be in good company. Remember when we entertained that fellow from the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, and Transport at that restaurant in Akasaka, along with his female companion? I'd say that was a fine example of excessive reception. Now remind me again who headed up that little event. Deftly rolling a mahjong tile in his fingers, he spoke up triumphantly. You were sure enjoying yourself that night, he continued, prompting one of his subordinates to laugh. You were drooling all over that woman, despite being a married man. The laugh spread through the room. The talk about starting your own business was a lie, then, I asked in desperation. No, it was true, but it's something I'll put more thought into later. At the moment, I'm devoted to finishing the outer underground discharge channel. I thought of Kiyomi, who died without living even a fraction of a full life. Those tears were fake too, weren't they? I will curse Usami's false sobs even from the very platform of the gallows. Could you please leave? I have a winning hand here. I spoke with the corporate lawyer at Sinnoh about how a friend had defrauded me, but in the end, he said I had no choice but to pay up. Even after taking out all my savings, I still couldn't reach 50 million. I'm not much of an extravagant spender, but your sickly mother's medical expenses and Kiyomi's operation bills weren't cheap, and they really took a toll on our family finances. Sucking up to my parents, being scorned by my relatives' cold eyes, I planted a dark emotion in my very soul. Why am I in this situation? I bottled my anger at the unfair circumstances as I prostrated myself daily before a collector by the name of Gonzou. I've paid off 20 million now, Usami-san. Please take care of the rest. I confronted Usami-san in broad daylight as he gave a presentation at the company. Usami, surrounded by corporate executives, wasn't faced in the slightest. Could you pick a better place for this? Why should I cover for your debts? The cheek! I lost myself in anger, and the next thing I remember, I was grabbing him by the collar. That, naturally, was exactly what he planned for me to do. No one in the company would listen to me after that act of violence. All that awaited me was a week-long suspension and a cut in my salary. With nothing else to do but cry myself to sleep, I returned home and knelt in front of Kiyomi's portrait every day. I trembled in anger day in, day out. Anger toward Usami, anger toward my foolishness. My nerves were so on edge, I had begun to believe that Usami killed Kiyomi himself. My lawyer says that my unsound mind at the time would help him in an insanity plea. Months passed and I still had no means with which to repay the debt. Meanwhile, Usami's effort finally paid off and he was promoted to senior executive manager. He headed the outer underground discharge channel project, which boasts being the largest underground structure ever built. In front of that, my existence must have been trivial to him. Well, son, should I have forgiven this man? I feel bad for you three, my family. But Usami cried fake tears at Kiyomi's death and laughed inside his heart. He cried out to the heavens at how unfair Kiyomi's death was. For what reason was she born? He said. Was Kiyomi born into this world to be used by Usami? Of course not, right? Just before I committed the act, I was called out by Usami. Usami, ever the man of pleasure, was addicted to gambling on illegal horse races. At first glance, the place looked like a regular coffee shop, but the kind of people who gathered there weren't there to drink coffee. They were all dressed too shabbily to be the typically posh clientele of such a place. They all stared at the television screen, watching the races with an excited air about them. Keep this a secret from my wife and daughter, he said cheerfully, and I was at a loss for words. Looks like you're having some money troubles. Whose fault do you think that is? I wanted to shout. Do you know about the Soniyama group? It was a Yakuza organization operating out of Tomibetsu City. If you work in construction for a while, you can get connections with these kinds of people. You're as overdramatic as ever. What are you talking about? I have a favor to ask of you. To make the story short, he wanted to embezzle from Senno, and he wanted the cooperation of the lead accountant, me. He said we could give the Yakuza a cut as well. How about it? If you accept my offer, I might ask them to ease up on collecting your debt. A cruel smile formed upon his thin lips. It was only then that I truly understood the events of the past few months. This man had been trying to trick me from the very start. Getting my signature on that accursed contract was only the beginning. Usami-san, do you have no concept of decency? Usami just laughed out his nose. Samejima Toshikatsu, your name itself is a testament to your destiny to lose at everything you do. Toshikatsu is victory, spelled backwards, defeat. And Samejima, that admiral who lost Japan in the war, no one would need morality lessons preached by such a profound loser. We're not in college anymore. As an adult, I'm questioning whether you have any sort of moral values. You aren't fighting a war, you're just bullying the weak. You have a daughter too, don't you? How do you feel with what happened to my daughter, Haru? Okay, hold on. No, I messed up. How would you feel if what happened to my daughter happened to Haru? Oh, okay. I kind of got that right. You say it. I just guessed. You say it like I killed Kiyomi-chan or something. How cruel. My subordinates and I even went to the trouble of going to pay our respects. That must have been the moment where my passing fancies of killing him became more than just fancies. In any case, didn't you and your wife consider your age? It's common knowledge that having children at an old age carries danger with it. Usami was clever. His mind had tapped somehow into the powers of hell. He really hit me where it hurt, my sin. When the doctors told me about the abnormality in Kiyomi's heart, I was plagued with guilt. This is such a war dump. The only child I've made is Haru. Unlike her children, Haru is a brilliant daughter. She has my genes after all. So she's demon spawn? No, she's an angel, naturally. What father would think otherwise about his daughter? Daughter, right? Oh, child. Okay. I know that Haru, with her tiny violin, wasn't at fault for anything. But hatred burned in my heart, and I felt that the only way to strike at this beast in human clothes would be to kill his daughter. Hair on the G-string danced in my head. Men's minds are strange things, as they correlate sensations like music to memories and emotion. Thus, Air on the G-string became the soundtrack to my revenge against Usami. Son, what will your mind's eye paint in your heart when you listen to Air on the G-string? Oh man, that was a big amount to read just to start the chapter. It's hard to believe this magical scenery was made by the hands of man. Tomibetsu City Outer Underground Discharge Channel. It's also called the Underground Shrine, a giant superpressure cistern. It collects the rainwater that drains into it through an underground tunnel network, then opens up into a nearby river. Water is the source of life, but can sometimes cause terrible disasters. It was the fear of flooding, that brought the people who constructed this together. They pooled their intelligence to make this disaster prevention facility. It was also Usami Yoshinori's lifelong desire. Father, soon, I swear, soon I too will hear air. The G-string of a celestial violin will be passed from one generation to the next. I'll save you, Father, soon. Whoa. Whoa. I went to the police forensics lab. It was a tiny, cramped room. One corpse lay strewn out. The glossy white sheets stood out among the dull, dim darkness. Yes, it was definitely my mother. I somehow managed to squeak that the thing before me, with the strangely disfigured head and body, was indeed Mom. The policeman sighed, then said, "Now we can finally do an autopsy." My beautiful mother, the woman who hugged me tightly as I shook from the cold, the woman who gave her body and soul to protect me from that monstrous man. Her head was caved in, yet it was definitely Mom. Despite recuperating at home after a diagnosis of severe clinical depression, she apparently suddenly gathered her things and dashed outside at 7 p.m. the day of the accident. They found a plane ticket to Tokyo's Haneda airport on her person. It seems she planned to take the red-eye to Tokyo. The accident occurred as she tried to get on the bus to the airport and cross the intersection. Apparently, the crosswalk light was green. Nevertheless, a car smashed into her at 75 miles per hour. The driver, a young man, tried to get away, but a nearby patrol car chased and ultimately apprehended him. A quick inspection revealed that he had been drinking. I wonder how Usami and Tokita fared in their own escape. What punishment awaits me now that I've betrayed Gonzou? I just don't care anymore. One of the items found among my mother's belongings was a handmade scarf. I clutch it tightly as I stare at the floor of my dark, lonely room. Someone, please answer just one question. What sin did my mother commit to lead her to her death? She had planned to come surprise me with a visit. I should have gone to Sapporo to pick her up. Years ago. I should have gone to live with her even if it meant leaving Gonzou's side. Yet I continued to follow Gonzou, determined to make a name for myself in the underworld. What a childish dream. Wasn't my goal all along to take care of my ailing mother? I treated it as my one and only shining, albeit tiny hope. Poor Mom. Her husband was a murderer. She was so deep in debt that she felt mentally ill, and to top it all off, she died an unfair, untimely death by vehicular manslaughter. Where is the justice in this god-darn world? God-forsaken world. Angels do not exist. How could they? If they did, I would have a firmer grip on my sanity. I wouldn't be grasping at my burning hatred to protect my humanity. The only things keeping me from losing my mind are the finely detailed visions of myself killing the driver who murdered my mother. A headache tears at my skull, but right now I almost feel blessed with this pain, this pleasure, this punishment. This retribution from God upon a pathetic boy who couldn't save his mother. I vaguely see a light at the end of the tunnel. I might be able to reach it if I lend myself to this headache. I couldn't hold back my laughter. I felt refreshed, as if the seeds I had planted that failed to sprout had actually only waited for the opportune moment, and were now reaching for the sun. Maou, huh? I think back on all the incomprehensible events of this past winter. The ransom stolen from Tsubiki's family. The attempt on Izai Gonzou's life via car bombing. Thinking about it now, there was something I didn't like about Tsubuki. And it was Gonzou that kept me from seeing my mother. I had plenty enough motives. And zero alibis, actually. All of the action occurred while I wasn't feeling well. My memory of those events is too hazy to interpret. Oh, yes, and let's not forget Dr. Akimoto's enthusiastic romantic diagnoses. The suspicious looks from Usami and Gonzou. Okay, I'm gonna read all of this. I just had a little problem. I thought it was impossible before, but now I want to believe it. No, I'm ready to believe it. After all, what is truly impossible? Surely it was impossible for my mother to be killed in an accident. Preposterous things happen every goddamn day, so maybe I really am now. The echo of the intercom's chime suddenly rings throughout the room. I thought it was one of Gonzou's cronies, but it was an unexpected person.
開けてください、浅井さん。
It was Usami, still on the run from the Civil Alliance. Oh, I let Usami in. She was aghast at the change in me. After all, I haven't bathed in several days. After all, I haven't bathed in several days. This isn't exactly the best place to hide from the Yakuza.
はい、それは分かっているんですが。
But what? My heart throbs in pain. I had always held a certain suspicion toward Usami. It was related to the events surrounding my biological father, events I never cared to talk about.
ニュースで事故のことを聞きまして。
What do you care if my mother is dead?
それは
She mumbled. She seems to be pitying me. I decided to ask on a whim. Are you Usami Yoshinori's daughter? She stopped breathing. I see. I almost wanted to laugh. That's why you've been following me around all this time. Did you want to apologize in your father's stead, or did you come to avenge his murder? Usami's sobs drizzled out into the room and their echoes diffused through the darkness. It was unpleasant. Why are you crying?
すみません。
Disgusting to the bitter end.
すみません。すみません。
Shut up. But Usami didn't even try to wipe her tears.
お母さんが亡くなられたと聞いて、いても立ってもいられなくなって。
What?
今、ユキと水葉はユキの自宅にいます。警察の感謝です。そこなら、ゴンゾーさんの手のものも寄りつけないと思いまして。
I see. That sounds like a reasonable enough plan. I guess that's why Gonzou hasn't made his move yet. But that still doesn't explain why you're here.
ですから、浅井さんに会いたくなって。
You wanted to see me? Why would you want to see a murderer's son? Usami's always been a strange woman. I hear the sound of ruffling clothing. The victim's daughter suddenly started taking her clothes off. Uh,
私でよければ。
Oh, is the beast's daughter is a prostitute?
好きです。
Oh, it felt like someone had squeezed my heart.
ずっと好きだったよ。
Oh, that was the worst confession ever. Hilarious. What was happening in my room was far from an expression of pure love. It was little more than an insult. An insult that defiled me and disgraced her. It was only right that she shook all over. You've always loved me, you say. I have half a mind to kill you on the spot. You know that?
だって
There's no way we could ever be together. Do you even know what your father did to mine, huh? Say it!
でもそれは私たちには関係ないはず。
Yeah, sure. Logically, you're right. If I were a machine, then we could do whatever you want. But how do you expect me to look you in the eye and accept you while I think about the humiliation my father went through?
私はそれでもあなたが。
Usami looked like she was about to fall to her knees, crying. Nevertheless, she diligently held her reddened eyes fixed on me. She seemed to be devoting her all to this confrontation.
好きです。ダメだ、忘れようって思ってもずっと好きでした。
I can see that her feelings are true.
許してください。どうかあなたを好きでいても許してください。
The woman in front of me was Usami I did not know, a woman hopelessly in love.
初めて会った10年前から私はあなただけを思ってあなただけが忘れられなくて。
10 years ago. I think back. I see a hazy scene, one I don't remember very well. It came as a flash, tearing through the darkness of my memory like a faint twinkle of lightning. But it left as quickly as it came, and the abyss of hatred was quick to cover my world once again. I see. So you came to comfort me?
すみません。浅井さんは同情なんて大嫌いだと思いましたが、それでも何か力になれればと。
Because?
はい。好きだからです。
How pushy. Pretty darn sightly, if you ask me. In what way is this girl a hero? She's going there in demon spawn. Alright.
Hi.
Yeah, okay. Clearly shaking. Yeah. Oh. Extraordinary hard. Usami's luscious butt. Violating the only child of the monster who ripped apart my family and drove my father to murder. What an incredibly tempting offer. It should be plenty to wash away my father's humiliation. For some reason, tears pour from my eyes. Tears of blood gifted to me by my father, I tell myself. I consider the scene before me for a minute. I see a woman crying with her legs spread wildly and a man shedding tears on tears. Okay. Yeah, it was a painting of hell by the devil himself. What is it? What is this? It was at that moment that Usami muttered that name of all names. Get out of my sight, Usami! Her reaction was just to cry like a child. This is my very last sliver of goodwill toward you. Next time I see you, I'll do more than for you. This is dark. She trembled as she hurriedly dressed. I don't ever want to see your face again. Next time, I'll kill her without a second thought. I'm barely able to hold back my urge to torture her to death as is. However, Usami said my dead sister's name. She said, Kiyomi-chan, I'm sorry, and truly put all her heart into the apology. Usami dashes off into the room's darkness, tumbles around a bit, and leaves in a run. Absolute silence reigns after her departure. My ears ring and my headache threatens to break my will. And right at this very moment, I can feel Maou awakening inside me. Now, what a refreshing morning. Exactly 1 week has passed since Tokida's hostage case. At the moment, I'm wondering what I should do now. I hear something at the door. The door opens. Several feet shod in expensive leather sent sharp noises through the room. Why, hello there, Horibe-san. I casually greet the few yakuza who've clearly come for my blood.
坊ちゃん、朝早くにすみませんね。
Oh, no, don't worry about it. What business do you have with me? A cruel smile surfaced on Horibe's face.
親父があなたの首をご所望です。
Oh, he told you to kill me?
聞けば、坊ちゃんこそが魔王だったそうじゃないですか。
Do you agree with him?
おやおや、しらばっくれてもダメですよ。あのアイスアリーナの一件でほとんど黒だったんですから。
What do you mean?
坊ちゃんにはいくら電話しても繋がらなかったじゃないですか。
Oh, that? You know how crowded it was. There was nothing I could do. I was desperately trying to contact you too.
またやめてくださいよ。つい昨日のことですがね、山王物産の染谷っていうお偉方に親父が直に会いに行きましたね。
He spoke gleefully.
つい先日まで浅井という名の相談役を飼っていたそうなんです。若くて頭が切れてまるで坊ちゃんにそっくりだったそうですよ。
I grinned. Somea-san, huh? The corners of Horibe's mouth twisted as well, as if responding to me.
認めるんですね。
Dunno. I don't remember. The next moment, I was staring down a gun barrel.
まるで顔つきが変わりましたね、坊ちゃん。それがあんたの本性ってわけですか。
He pressed me for an answer. He intends to kill me on the spot.
詫びの一言でもあれば手前が受けたまわっておきますよ。
Apology?
坊っちゃんはお父さんに拾われてここまで慣れたんじゃないですか。
He's completely right. Thanks to Gonzou adopting me, my life has been hell.
さあ、何もありませんか。
How do I get out of this one? There are 3 other burly men here to back Horibe up. They've got the only door blocked off. Jumping out the window wouldn't be such a good idea. This is the 16th floor. Which leaves...
何ですか、坊ちゃん。
nothing.
まさかアクション映画の主人公みたいにうちらに逆襲できるとでも思ってるんですか。
Of course not. Only a fool would use violence against professional employers of violence. Still, these are nothing more than Gonzou's dogs, livestock, slaves to money. I stare down Horibe as he points his gun at me. Did he come here dead set on killing me, or is there some room for negotiation? Does he really intend on pulling the trigger, or is it just a threat? Alright. Well, Horibe-san, let me ask just one thing. Horibe narrows his eyes. Did father just order you to kill me?
ただ
While keeping my eyes on the barrel of the gun, I point to my safe. Contained within was the money I was saving to pay off my father's debt and provide for my mother's future. The small fortune is worth no more to me now than any old scraps of paper.
そうですね。中身の現生も回収させてもらいますよ。
As I expected, the slave to money took the bait. Oh, you will? That's rather troubling. There's over 50 million in there, you see?
じゃあそれを開けてもらいましょうか。
Horibe waved the gun in the direction of the safe as if he were sure of his victory. Very well. I walked to the safe, slowly dialed the combination, and opened the door. They must have been dazzled by the glow of the gold inside.
いやいや 坊ちゃんはなかなか交渉上手ですね。
Thank you. I turn around to face Horibe and his joyous smile. The man looked like a child about to torture a bug.
で、そいつでこの場を見逃してもらおうっていう腹でしょ。
Indeed. How about it?
ダメですわ。
Horibe's face closed in on me, his anger so intense that I made his blood vessels protrude from his head.
本当に憎たらしい小僧だな、おい。往生際が悪いんだよ、このガキは。
Looking at him up close emphasizes how frightening the man really is. Did I really once command this bunch? I decided to speak up and end this charade. I see. I wholeheartedly apologize for my rudeness. However, this is my win.
なんだと？
You made me open the safe at gunpoint. Do you understand what this means?
ああ？
If you had just shot and killed me earlier, it had been simple murder. But killing me after making me open my safe is murder with intent to rob, whether you take the money or not. Horibe's clean-shaven eyebrows jumped up. Understood? You know what happens to people in your situation. A life sentence, or if you're unlucky, the death penalty. Horibe's glance slowly dropped to the ground. You're a genuine Yakuza, right? Horibe said. Being put in jail for murder for your boss's sake is no big deal, but if you dishonor yourself with the title of a thief, even if you get out of jail, there would be no place for in the civil alliance for you. Now, think hard. Will you throw your life away for a kid like me? A calculating man like Horibe should know what to do.
こりゃ一本取られましたね。
It would have been a different situation if this were deep in the mountains, in the middle of nowhere, and someone other than Horibe was pointing a gun at me. How about this? By the time you got here, I was already gone. Horibe clicked his tongue and put on his usual Yakuza smile.
わかりました。
I'm in your debt.
で、坊ちゃん。
The last thing he said was exactly what I'd expected Horibe.
この5000のうちいかほど包んでもらえるんですかね。
This will be the last time we meet. I received a call as I was out walking. Yo, Suzuki, what's up?
なんか久しぶりだね。元気かな？
Yeah, I feel great.
学園来ないのかな？
School, huh? Now that's nostalgic.
はるちゃんもみつはちゃんもゆきさんも来てなくて。
Oh, maybe it's the cold weather getting to everybody.
何かあったの？
Who knows? I don't, anyway. I've been busy with work. Or should I say play?
まあ元気ならいいや。そのうち学園にも来てね。
I suppose that means the call is drawing to a close. Wait, Suzuki.
どうしたの？
How's your family doing? Are you getting along alright?
何の変わりもないよ。
I'm so sorry about that thing last year.
何が？浅井くんはよくしてくれたじゃない。
Never mind. Don't worry about it. Later. Suzuki cheerfully said bye-bye before hanging up. One big happy family, huh? Having a family is enough happiness on its own. There's no need to complicate that. You can always make more money. Now, what to do? Oh, right. I should probably deal with the Gonzou. He should have just died from that car bomb. Alright, let's go kill him. But before that, there's still one thing that's bothering me. That memory. It's the only thing holding me back. Usami said she met me 10 years ago. Was that memory? Was it on the rooftop of the Senno Corporation's headquarters? Did I really meet Usami as a kid? I need to find out. Revenge can wait for now. I head for the Senno Corporation building. The night wears on, and now it's time to act. I finish my preparations and leave Sano's headquarters. As Samejima Kyousuke and Sami Haru met as children. They socialized in their own clumsy way and formed a friendship completely ignorant of what was transpiring between their parents. What a hilarious story. An old friend holding an unrequited love for an outrageous amount of time. And then a 10-year reunion. Your love could never have been answered, Usami. For you to seek normal happiness like that is impertinent. Now, Father doesn't have much time left. There's one man I must kill before executing my final plan. I take my cell phone in hand to call him. I throw my personal feelings to the wind as I listen to the ringing of the line. Be thankful I let you live for so long. The call connects and I speak up. It's been a while. Do you think that kind of greeting is suitable for this situation? Oh. Usami Haru alone rushed to Gonzou's mansion. After being rejected by the man she loved, she held no more hope. She decided to take the opportunity to drown herself in her chase for Maou, her mother's killer. As Gonzou stared at his sudden visitor.
死人の匂いが強くなったな。
So is Kyousuke gonna show up while she's talking to him or something? Haru was prepared to be killed by Gonzou for allowing Yuki a
ユキから
comrade
聞
to
き出し
escape.
た魔王の情報は全てお話しします。ですからユキに手を出さないでいただけませんか。
She knew there was no way to live in this city with Gonzou as an enemy. Take one step outside the safe zone Yuki and Mizuha would hold themselves up in, and Gonzou's men would be waiting. As if they knew their prey would give in eventually. The Yakuza continued their surveillance of the Tokita household.
ユキが許されるのであれば、私はどうされても構いません。
She spoke without reverence and stared challengingly into Gonzou's eyes. Flattery wouldn't work on this beast of a man anyway. Defending herself in even the slightest would prevent him from taking her seriously. She was prepared to bare her vitals, her stomach, her jugular, any number of vulnerable spots to show she wasn't afraid of the beast.
時田の娘についてはひとまず置く。
Gonzou's interest seemed to be somewhere else.
魔王の情報などもはや必要ない。
と言いますと。
お前も知っての通り、京介こそが魔王だ。
Haru doubted her ears.
京介は精神科医にかかっている。話を聞いたところ、奴はどうやら心因性健忘症という病にかかっているようだ。
それはどういう。
脳の組織に異常が生じ、突然過去の記憶がなくなったり、部分的に空白になる非常に珍しい疾患だ。
そんな。それは何が原因で。
ストレスの積み重ねだ。そしてストレスがあっても外に出せず、感情を押し殺すようなタイプに起こりうるという。
A lump rose in Haru's throat. She could tell Kyousuke had a brutal past. She could also tell that he didn't have a single friend who understood the man behind the cheerful mask he wore at school.
浅井さんは京介君は魔王じゃありません。
She muttered as if speaking to herself. Haru may outwardly say she suspects Kyousuke, but inside she trusts him to an almost idiotic extent. However, she didn't have any proof to present to Gonzou. She had no way convincing that Kyousuke was not the one who had taken the Miwa family's ransom and
お
blown his
前
car.
は過去において京介と接点があった。
よくご存知で。
The beast's eyes shot open.
ついていたか、
はい。
京介は。
あの時は。
そうか。
Haru suddenly felt that the intimidation oozing from Gonzou's eyes, every pore, had stopped flowing altogether.
そうか。
Gonzou repeated. Haru, helpless, could do nothing but wait for Gonzou's inevitable judgment of Kyousuke.
いけれども、いけれども、道は氷がなり。人のせいに四季はなく、ただ冬の荒野があるのみ。 流れ出た血と涙は拭わずともいずれ凍りつく。
Haru couldn't tell if he was speaking about Kyousuke or himself. A voice called from the next room. Gonzou answered, and a man in a black suit appeared carrying a cordless phone. He left again without saying a word. Gonzou took the phone, then kept silent for a bit. Haru had no idea who the caller was or what the call was about.
Kyousuke よ。
Gonzou finally spoke up in a threatening voice.
のこのこと現れれば死ぬぞ。
That seemed to be the end of the conversation. Immediately after that, Gonzou stood up. He seemed to almost forget about Haru's existence.
あの
Gonzou hid a gun in his pocket, then walked outside with a haughty gait. The beast was going hunting. There was nothing Haru could do to stop him. Okay. Looks like the fish bit at my bait. Two Mercedes-Benzes rushed along the dark harbor. Muscle jumped out of the cars when they stopped. Gonzou has 6 guards with him. He must be underestimating me. Most likely, they're not carrying anything bigger than pea shooters. Furthermore, I wonder how many of these 6 have actually killed someone. They may be Yakuza, but there aren't many Yakuza who spend days out in secluded mountains practicing with loaded firearms and live ammunition. The only problem is, our man, Azai Gonzou, is refusing to come out of his vehicle, one with heavy tinting, I might add. Thus, I can't paint Gonzou's vitals with my scope's crosshair. Still, there ought to be plenty of chances. These men, who are used to living in a peaceful country like Japan, would never dream that they're being targeted by a rifle on a rundown building 200 yards away. My sniping isn't something to brag about, but I have an excellent scope helping me. An expert engineer adjusted the focus for me, so even if my aim is a little shaky, I shouldn't miss my target. I grip the rifle and the smell of oil from the gun reaches my nose. I monitor the situation through my scope. I was right to have chosen the wharf as my hunting grounds. It's a wide expanse with practically no cover. A large man reminiscent of a bodyguard turns to talk to the back seat of one of the cars. "Boss, we can't find him." His throaty voice echoes through the silent night. Azai Gonzou is definitely here. He's being careful, having his subordinates search the area. Now, how to smoke him out of the car? I stick a rod covered with a soft cloth into the barrel of the gun. I finish up the cleaning, then put 5 rounds of ammunition into the chamber. The bullets are tipped with ceramic, designed to pierce through most bulletproof vests. I take out the hand towel I had stashed in the instrument case I transported the rifle in. I intend to use it to quickly gather up the shells after the fact. I wrap the weapon sling around my left arm, then fix my elbow firmly to the ground. Making sure to support the gun with my bones and not strength, I put my cheek and right hand up on the stock. My preparations are about finished. The ocean is quiet and there isn't much wind. I took into consideration the humidity and air currents between buildings also, but I couldn't find anything that might upset any shots I fired. All that's left is to do is find Gonzou and aim at him. I took aim at the Mercedes-Benz Gonzou would be coming out of. I then heard the sound of a car engine and checked the situation through the lens again. A taxi had pulled up. It stopped by the side of Gonzou's vehicle for a moment, then quickly drove away. I snicker when I see who had stepped out. I adjusted my sights to take into account the crosswind. Taking into mind the effect of gravity, I moved the crosshair slightly upwards. Now come out, Gonzou. I'll take you down in one blow. But for some reason, I can't keep my cool. It's not excitement for the conclusion of my hunt. And it's certainly not pity for the beast who ruined my mother. Then, As if sensing the disturbance in my heart, Gonzou jumped out of the car at the exact right moment. With the agile movements of a wild animal, he ran with his body low to the ground.
Kyousuke!
He roared. Of all places, he was looking straight at me, as if he knew he was being targeted by a rifle. As if he predicted, I used this position to snipe him. Why? It's conceivable that he'd be cautious of a sniper. That's why he didn't come out of the car. But why? Before I could think, a will to put down the beast took over me. Gonzou's huge body was dead center in my sights. He arrogantly looked up at me. Now, do it! The beast came to be killed. I aimed the crosshair at his chest. I steadied my breathing. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in. I keep my eyes pried open. My eyelids are frozen in place. I take aim. Put my finger to the trigger. And squeeze ever so slightly. The rifle fires. The sound of the gunshot echoes throughout the docks and Gonzou's huge body shakes. The bullet went in just below the lung. I missed his heart, but it's a fatal wound. I put a little bit of gunpowder in the bullets. So right now, the beast's insides must be. What?
Maou yo! Kike!
How is he still standing?
悪とは未だ人のうちに残っている動物的な性質にこそ起源がある。
His knees didn't even falter, and his face is filled with violent excitement. His bloodshot eyes seemed capable of leaping from their sockets at any second.
復讐に救いを求め、救いに悪をなさんとする貴様は、遠からず己が悪行の脆さを知るだろう。
It was like the standing death of Benkei. My body shrank back at the final roar of a beast on the verge of death.
笑おう！盛大に！
The very next moment, Gonzou's mouth vomited a veritable bloodstorm. He was smiling. Gonzou spends his final moments bellowing in laughter, spewing from his lungs a sea of blood, and despite seeming to drown me, he continues laughing. The rifle shakes, pounding against my ear. No, it's my arm shaking. For some reason, I was trapped in a nightmare that the beast 200 yards away was devouring my intestines. Calm down. I killed him. Gonzou is dead. There's no doubt about that. Right, there's nothing to panic about. His last screams were nothing but the howling of a dying dog. Laughter. Humbug. That was nothing more than the convulsions of a hyena who failed to kill his prey. Gah. No matter how cool I try to play, my violently beating heart betrays my desire to flee. Did he just demonstrate the difference between us as animals? When I looked into the scope again, I was overcome with fear. There's no one there. The wolves, now without an alpha male, had dispersed without a hint of disturbance. They merely rushed to the nearest cover and redirected their attention. The only thing in view was Gonzou's body, lying on the ground. This is bad. I missed my chance to take out the rest of my targets. I underestimated them. I thought Japan's Yakuza were a bunch of dunces, more bark than bite. Without uttering a word about their boss's death, they came straight for me. An army that keeps moving even after losing its commander, eh? If they're truly this competent, then it's highly probable that one of them noted the flash from my rifle. In other words, I should assume they know where I am. I quickly pack away the rifle and prepare to withdraw. I dash down the emergency staircase of the rundown building. I'm careful to move as quietly as I can without sacrificing speed. I leave the building and the harbor, then hide in the shadows of a warehouse. I managed to escape by a hair's breadth. Men infiltrate the decrepit building I had just been in, and act in groups of two covering each other's blind spots. Their cooperation was reminiscent of the Special Forces buddy system. In all the battlefields I've been in, I've never felt so alive. It was a narrow victory. No, in all honesty, I have no idea how I was able to take down Gonzou. Why did he leave the safety of the car and put himself in danger? I can't figure it out. Nevertheless, it seems the devil has smiled upon me today. I tasted my revenge against the beast that drove my mother to the grave. I should be content with this. Farewell, Azai Gonzou. Now, Usami, you're next.